Hi everyone. So this is going to be our Blood Mania week where we're doing 3 labs on blood spatter. We're going to start with our first one, which has to do with stringing up from the blood angles we're going to find. So let's start out. Let's take a look at the materials we need and what the lab looks like. So looking at the lab right here, you have a statement. You're going to read that statement from the information that you are given. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so you can see it, but you will get this in classroom. You're going to find a scene from the story that is given to you by Jack Jacobs. You're going to try to determine whether or not his story is true or not true based on the evidence that you find of the scene. So they give you procedure down here, which I will go through with you in just a moment. We're going to be using that angle equation again. Width divided by length. Width is always a smaller number. Length is always the bigger number. Then get the inverse sign. That's going to give us the impact angle. Now, not only are we going to get the impact angle, we're going to find out what that angle is and how high off the floor. So we're going to get that point of origin. We're going to try to figure out where that injury was made. So let's start out looking at the materials that you're going to need. So this first lab you're going to need, I'm going to just go down towards the table here. Hopefully it doesn't fall out. There we go. I'm going to make this smaller there. So we have a bunch of things here. We have some scissors. This is a little eraser that goes with the expo marker. And we have a calculator we're going to need. We're going to need some tape. We're going to need some string. And then we're going to need your ruler, protractor. You're going to need a little piece of clay, a little round piece of clay. You're going to need a straw, okay? And we're ready to roll. So if you look here, here's our map of the crime scene. If you look at the lab itself, it asks you how far away, what's the distance from the center of the victim's head to the center of the blood drop. So we're going to use our ruler. Okay, we're going to use centimeters because it asks us to do it in centimeters. So let's say I do this one that's the closest. Okay, I go to the center of the blood drop to the center of the person's head, and that's approximately, I don't know, about 3.4 centimeters. So we're going to mark that as 3.4 centimeters on the data table. I can also mark them to help me remember which one is which. This is going to be number 1. Okay, then I can do number 2, number 3, and I can put what's the distance between the center of the drop to the center of the victim's head. So center of the drop, center of the victim's head, that's about 9.3-ish. Okay, so 9.3-ish. So let's say that number 3, 9.3, we put that on our sheet. Now we're going to do what we normally do and get the width and length. So before that, I'm going to show you and take the piece of clay. Once we get all the angles, then we can do this part, width and length. All right, let's just take a quick width and length measurement. I can use this one. I can also use this larger one, no big deal. So just eyeballing it really quick. This looks like 1.2. And this is 1.9, 1.2, 1.9. I don't have a pen or a pencil, 1.2. So I would use that on my calculator, make sure it's in degrees mode. So 1.2 divided by 1.9. Okay, and then I get the inverse sign. The angle is 39 degrees. Okay, so what does that mean? Means, all right, we have the victim's head right there. Okay, that's where the victim was standing, somewhere in this plane. So I'm going to put the straw right in the middle. This is the person's height, representing the person, how tall they are. This is, I believe, Janie. So So we said this was 39 degrees, 39 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of string, okay, cut up the string. You don't want to make it super long because you don't want too much waste. So maybe this would be fine. All right, here's my string. I'm going to take the string. I'm going to tape it to the center of the drop. Did you see that? The center of the drop. Okay, just like a little close up here so you can kind of see it. I'm going to bring it back into the frame. There you go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my protractor. Hard to do this by yourself, but take your protractor, line it up to the center of the drop, to the center point here. See the center point right there? That's where you're going to line it up to that center string. You're going to line it up and you're going to say, okay, 39 degrees. Make sure that your protractor is facing towards the straw. 39 degrees is about here somewhere. Okay, make sure that it's wherever it is on there, make sure that it's straight. And once you find out where the location is, again, go back. Take the piece of tape, make sure that's as exact as it possibly can, and then just tape it gently to the straw. You don't have to cut off the extra piece, that's fine. But you're going to do that for all of the blood drops. And then, because on the lab itself, it says get the width, get the length, get the impact angle, and then what is the height on the straw? Now, you don't want to really use this one. The reason is it doesn't start at 0. See that? So we need one that does kind of start at 0 or closer to 0. Or you're going to have to go backwards, or you have to add on. So you want to figure out how tall that is. What's the height? So that's about 9 centimeters. And what does that 9 centimeters mean in terms of the height of Janie's body? Well, that's what you're trying to figure out. So you're trying to determine if Jack Jacobs' story is true or not true by doing all of the strings all at the same time. So you're going to have 7 different strings at one time to the straw. And then you're going to try to determine, is the story true or not true? So that is lab number 1. You're going to do this one first. There's some information here that you're going to work with. All right, let me just go back to the lab itself. So here is the data that you're getting. Then you have information. So taking that data and manipulating it to determine how many inches off the ground. And then you're going to tell us, is this true or not true? So this lab report isn't a lot of things in it. There's a title. Introduction is just purpose and hypothesis. The method is just defining the point of origin. Data chart as given. Calculations as given above, including a photo of all the strings. Discussion. Explain how the evidence proves or disproves Jack Jacobs' statement. Be specific. Include the details from the calculations that you're given. And then go back to the hypothesis. How does your data support or not support your hypothesis? Did you meet your objective? And that's it for this lab. That's lab number 1. Okay, so let's go to lab number 2. Lab number 2, once you're done with lab number 1, you can do lab number 2 at the same time that some people are going to be doing lab number 3. So lab number 3 is kind of an exclusive one group at a time type of thing. So lab number 2, I'm going to move this out of the way to show you what to do. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to get 1 card at a time. You go and there's 12 cards. 12 cards. So this is one of the 12 cards. So it has like on the back of it, it says BSP1. So this is blood spatter 1. This is card number 1. So what are we doing with this? There is a lab sheet just like this. It says pattern number 1. What kind of stain is it? Describe how that stain pattern was created. So you're going to look at this and then tell me the story. And you're like, well, wait a second. What if we want to look at it longer? What I did was I created a PowerPoint slides of all of them. So here's card number 1. But sometimes it's also nice to look at it up close and personal. So I'm just going to move this just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So you have card number 1, card number 2. How is this made? What type of blood pattern is it? Give a category for it. And that's all going to go on here. And that's all you have to do is fill out the sheet for the 12 bloodstain patterns. Because while you're doing the 12 bloodstain patterns, which is going to take some time to explain all of them as they need to, there's going to be a group working on lab number 3. Lab number 3 is the microscene lab. The microscene lab, again, you'll see why only one group at a time can work on it, is a little micro scene. So if you look down, I'm going to show you first the lab itself. The lab itself, it says here student copy. There's a story. It starts with a story. So knowing that story, I think we have Anita Forbes and Michael Forbes. Michael Forbes is the one giving the statement. You'll have to read his statement. And then you're going to request evidence privately. So the other groups don't know what you're requesting. Okay, I'm just going to pull this back just a little bit, just so that you could see it a little bit better. So you're going to be requesting this data, which we call evidence. You're going to get a little form. So let me just show you the form and let me show you what you are actually observing to collect this evidence. So down a little bit here. Here we go. So we have here, there's a little form that you're going to fill out. There's 5 pieces of evidence. Some of those pieces I will have and give you and allow you to look at and take photos of it. Some of those things I will not have. And you might have to rely on the story itself. It might be implied in the story. Your task is to determine whether or not his statement, Mr. Forbes' statement, is true or not true. So what are you going to do? After you look at the scene, you're going to look at the scene. You are going to take photos of the scene. So here is the crime scene. We have different spatters on the floor, on the ceiling, on the walls. I'm just going to pan slowly so you can have an idea. So you're going to take photos of all aspects of that room. You're going to then ask requests for evidence privately from you and your group is going to ask for this evidence. You're going to list all the evidence that you asked for. So what are you going to do in this lab in the terms of a write-up? Basically, it's very simple. You start with, number 1, a hypothesis. What do you think happened before collecting and reviewing the data? Then label data as all the evidence that you collected. Then results, all the pictures from the crime scene and all the evidence that you collected. Discussion is what are the observations that you made as a group? Record those in your discussion. And then your conclusion. You're going to tell me whether or not you believe that this person's statement is true or not true. if the hypothesis that you had in the beginning is correct or incorrect, the conclusion should start with the evidence is consistent with, and then continue working from there. And those are the 3 blood labs that you're going to be focusing on for about a week. It's going to take a few days to get them all done, but the write-ups are quite short and should be able to get them done pretty much right after you do each portion of each lab. Okay, so there you go. There's our 3 labs. The first one is the stringing, where you put all the strings up to the straw to determine what happened with Jamie. Number 2, you have the blood cards. So number 1 was the stringing. Number 2, the blood cards. You're going to be working on the blood cards while one group is analyzing this scene here in front of us, right here in front of us. Now you can see it. Maybe you can see it even better now. Here's the whole crime scene. You're going to be taking photos. You're going to be asking for evidence. And then you have to conclude what happened based on the evidence that you have. And those are your 3 labs. I do have some photos also that I took. So you might want to put those together for yourself, taking them from the ceiling, from each corner, each side. And then instead of putting the label into the picture, you're going to give it a caption for the lab. So most of your lab for the number 3 is going to be photos. Okay, so there we go. Enjoy.